Hey, Mike.
Howdy, gentlemen.
Welcome.
Hey, what's going on? Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, both of you guys, for coming out tonight.
Yeah,
Got my
absolutely.
crit shirt on.
Nice.
My special shirt for
Yes,
special occasions.
indeed. Indeed.
That's awesome. Yeah, actually, oddly enough, I put on a necklace that my friend sent me that has a D20 in it. It's all like leather and kind of wrapped around it. And
Oh, cool.
yeah.
I have a spearhead. That's about all I've got Dungeons and Dragons related.
Now you need the spear.
I know. I need the rest of it.
Is there such a thing as like a short-handed spear, like you would just hold?
Yeah.
Like
Mostly in African, like sub-Saharan African cultures, historically, like there's a precedent for short-hafted, like one-handed spears. And I mean, most spears were used one-handed throughout most of the world. They were just long for the case of reach. It was the most popular weapon on the battlefield for, I think, every single culture on Earth.
And probably for cultures that are come, like the zombie apocalypse, when that happens, spears are going to be priceless.
Well, they're just easy to make, and they're easy to train people on. You just poke somebody with it. That's it. That's you go over there, you poke them. I'm sure there are advanced techniques for spears.
Well, we have with us tonight actually a spear expert. Come on in, John DeSicocco. Come on in. I don't know. That would have been impressive, though, if I pulled in a spear expert.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been shocked. It would have completely destroyed anything I would have wanted to talk about later. The whole premise of us being here. I guess we should introduce ourselves.
Greetings, welcome back to another fun and exciting episode of the podcast, Does Dungeons and Dragons. These are my friends and multi-DMs here. My friend Mike, my friend Chris. What's up?
Welcome.
Howdy.
We're going to talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. I've got a few questions that I thought I'd open up the floor with, and we can go from there. But Chris, before we go too far, I want to hear a little bit more about this sci-fi thing you're working on.
Yes, I'm constantly working on new campaigns and stuff, even though, I'm getting a no from Mike there. But I'm constantly working on future campaigns. And the one I'm working on now probably was one of the largest ones I've been working on.
Oh, okay.
But it's a Traveler campaign.
Okay.
For those who don't know, Traveler is a tabletop RPG, much like Dungeons and Dragons. If you look at it from like a gameplay perspective, very similar. That is, instead of high fantasy, it is very much so sci-fi, spacefaring sci-fi adventure game. So it's something I'm very, very passionate about. I'm looking forward to.
I hope you got an open spot in that game, because when it comes to sci-fi, it's real tough. Like you either plan 2 years ahead or you flop. Like it's not like fantasy where as much as I love fantasy, I feel like you can fake it a little bit. You know what I mean?
With sci-fi, there are real world problems in the world that exist in real life. You can definitely draw a lot more allegory from sci-fi than you can fantasy in some ways. Not necessarily, that you can't with fantasy, but it's a lot easier to tie real world issues to sci-fi.
Yeah.
Usually sci-fi is trying to ask a question. There is some larger element to it. Whereas with fantasy, generally it follows a simple hero's journey. And sci-fi occasionally does with things like Star Wars, but that's very much not the inspiration for this campaign. Not to say that I don't like Star Wars. It's just not for this specific campaign. It didn't make sense to kind of use that as a basis.
Mike, have you ever run a sci-fi campaign?
When I was but a lad, I played about 2 sessions of Traveler. Enjoyed it a lot. I still remember my character's name and everything. So if I play this, I will use the same character's name I had before. Never got out of the spaceport that I started in because the game master we kind of broke apart. But and then the other one I played a little bit of was the Gamer World. I don't know if you guys back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
I dabbled in everything. We had I went to Boot Hill, which is the Old West game, which was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Some Top Secret, which is the spy stuff, and then the Gamma World, a little bit of the Gamma World stuff. So yeah, I dabbled in between other stuff, but mostly it's always been the D&D.
Those golden years, man. There was so many different offshoots and so many different things.
Yes.
And,
Dungeons and Dragons is such a easy system to get into, but also like there's so much material for it that it really is helpful, I think, especially for people who are new to tabletop RPGs, to really get in. It's very accessible. It's still one of my favorite systems.
Yeah. The VTTs make it much easier to get into, because the rule stuff is right there for you. You don't have to dig around too much.
I feel like even as a veteran player, playing VTT has helped me learn rules that I never kind of saw the same way before.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of homebrew things that I was like accustomed to using for years that I assumed was just part of the system at large. And then when I'm looking at the VTT, I'm like, wait a minute. We've been doing this wrong for like 10 years.
But you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong.
We were happy with it. It was fine. D&D is still very much so the predominant tabletop RPG.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I think everyone will always relate tabletop RPG with D&D. I don't think those will ever go, any other way.
It's a gateway drug, basically.
It is. Yeah. Very much so. Man, the money I have spent on D&D books over the years.
Yeah, I got lucky when I was young. When I first started out, my older brother, I got him to play, and he had a job, so he worked. So he was able to buy everything that we needed all the time, and we had everything. I had a milk case carton. I don't know what we'd call it nowadays, but full of modules and books, and I don't know what happened to it to this day. I think he still has it. Maybe I would love to get that back though. But it was awesome. I go to the bookstore every chance I got to go to the bookstore and see what was in.
See, it's interesting because I never was able to experience that early on in my D&D career, because I started D&D during what I guess people colloquially would call the Dungeons and Dragons Dark Ages. The post, like, it was a time where D&D was really, I mean, even though obviously during when you guys were getting into it, it was still very niche. It had fallen into obscurity, basically, by the time I was getting into it. I mean, this would be like the late or the early 2000s kind of. D&D was starting to come back. Like they were really trying to push it with 4th edition. It is really interesting. Like being able to like go to these major bookstores at that time, I'm sure. And just find D&D stuff.
Did you ever go into the hobby stores to get miniatures and the paints and all that? And
oh yeah. They had the same thing. That same store I was talking about had the miniatures and everything. And dabbled in painting them a little bit. I tried, but I was never very good at all that. I'm not the most artistic person in the world. So
that's tough, too.
That was fun. Those pewter ones, they were like, they called them leads at first. I don't know if they were made of lead, but
initially they were.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, and we had little sets of those and stuff. We didn't use them as much. We used mostly just the theater of the mind most of this time. We used back then, and it was like always in person because they didn't have the online stuff or anything, and drawing maps, graph paper, and all that kind of stuff constantly.
Let me hit you with these three too. We don't have to. Like, this is out of character right now. Is there one aspect of DMing a D&D game that appeals to you more than the other? Second one was longest game you've ever run, and third was where do you draw inspiration from? If there's one of those at some point you guys want to tackle, but
our credentials, even like years of experience. I started playing D&D, I guess when I was around 15 or so, and that would be around 16 years ago at this point, and then I've DM'd for about 10 of those years, mostly during the 5th edition era is when I've been DMing.
And the Godfather, Mike.
Yeah, the old head, the old head of the group here. Yeah. No, I started, I think it was like 79 with the basic set.
Nice.
I know a friend of mine in school, and for me it was high school because we didn't have a middle school because it was a small school. We were in a study hall, and he introduced me to the game and brought out the Keep on the Borderlands module, and I made 2 characters and went and picked a cave, went into it, and the rest is history from that point. Except, man, like I said, I went through the whole, from basic, went to the advanced, and we went to the 2nd edition, or I think it was just Dungeons & Dragons, then 2nd edition, something like, I don't remember.
Yeah.
But then by the time I was getting out of high school, I went into the military, and I had no one to play with. So for years, I didn't play again until 4th edition. I heard it was coming out. I thought, well, that's cool. Let me look at that. I bought the first player's handbook, and I looked at it, and this is different. But then almost immediately after I did that, 5th edition came out. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Never mind. Forget that.
Yeah.
But I didn't do any 3.5. I kind of skipped over that because I had no one. I lost touch with people I played with and just kind of moved around so much. So yeah, but yeah, 5th edition, and then DMing. I basically mostly DM. I played here and there a little bit with Chris DMing, and I started that campaign with you, Jay.
Yeah, Scoraya.
I have mostly been stuck. Yeah. I've mostly been stuck. Not stuck. I won't say stuck. I've been mostly typecast. I'm typecast as a DM now, but that's fine. I actually enjoy it. I really enjoy it.
It's a common ailment that befalls all DMs at some point.
I know. And the funny thing is that for years and years, it was kind of like the opposite, always looking for a DM or a player stepping up and be like, I'll run. And then, but now like it's like you just go online and be like, you can play with anybody all around the world at any time. And just,
I think the also thing is once somebody's found somebody that does DM, it's become a little easier for us to escape the forever DM kind of.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's a nice break. It's a nice break once in a while when you get a chance to play again.
Well, now that we got the three of us here, there was a point where we were trying to juggle Sundays, the three of us. It was like, well, we could do this and I could do that. And like, it was nuts.
You stretch yourself really thin if you have more than one campaign going too. You got juggle everything going on. It's tough.
And especially with my style of DMing, which is very much so improvisational. I don't work well with pre-made sources as well as some other DMs do. So, which is, for people who use them, it's great. But I can't seem to stick to it.
Well, I appreciate that. I love that style you have, Chris. I'm with I go with the box sets and stuff like this because it saves me. I can prep a little tighter with some of this stuff because all the framework is already there, and my imagination is pretty much shot these days. So I do the ideas basically from that and try to feed off of that if best I can. But
and I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think it's simply a stylistic kind of choice for a DM for what they personally fulfills them as a DM. For me, it's very difficult to stick to a script. Running multiple games is extraordinarily taxing. Yeah. It is a brutal kind of undertaking. So if I'm going to do something, it's going to be all.
Oh yeah.
But as a player, I can be as many as my schedule will allow.
I completely agree. Like it's so much easier to be a player and not having to prep. All you got to basically do is remember what happened last game and what
sometimes you don't even need to remember that.
No, well, that was something that came up a few weeks ago and with your dad was on Jim, and we said that VTT has been a great source of that. When you hop on, you're like, oh yeah, we killed that. There's the body of that thing. We were doing that, and it all comes back faster now that you have just that ability to look at it.
Yeah. It is nice to have somebody though that writes down stuff. I know you mentioned things that kind of inspired us as DMs. For me, at least, a lot of it comes out of history. Looking at real world historical events or real time periods, not necessarily as like a benchmark for like the world, but for the events that happen in those worlds. I know the Rime of the Frostmaiden campaign that I ran with both of you guys in it, was heavily based. Well, at least we didn't get to the portion that I really wanted to, but it was heavily based off of early medieval period in Norway, where there was like a bunch of big civil wars. So it was heavily based on that kind of historical event. I know I've run games that have been inspired by more recent events. Like I know there was a D&D campaign that I ran that was based, at least thematically based on the American Revolution, as far as like the kind of general vibe of the campaign. Not necessarily the setting, but the events and the kind of story elements.
Something you mentioned earlier was a great idea to me is you mentioned how you use real world kind of conflict and stuff in sci-fi.
Yes.
Bringing that into a D&D world, I feel like that's an inspiring idea to me. Like what is happening in the world? What can, fuel supplies or like whatever it is, trade routes. And
I don't want to go too far into my own thing, but the campaign that I had run recently with the group was heavily inspired by the kind of reactionary ideologies and kind of deep-seated kind of bigotry that has become normalized by various different ideologies.
How about you, Mike? Where do you draw your inspiration from when you're getting ready for a game?
No, I think I don't really get it from anything. More so just the overarching stories of stuff that I can find, and then watching the players interact with different aspects of it and how they think things through.
Yeah.
I'll sit there and try to think they're going to do this. I know they're going to do this. I'm going to plan for this, and then all of a sudden, of course, they never do that.
They never do it.
It's, yeah, and I get a kick out of that. I think that's funny. It keeps me on my toes, which is a good thing because I need to be kept on my toes from now on. Otherwise, it's too cookie cutter. But yeah, it's just like I just watching the players just trying to interact with each other sometimes. And I watched your show the other day, Jay, about the evil thing, and I'm with you on that 100% as far as I can never play an evil character myself.
Yeah.
Don't like having evil characters in the group. Especially if it was only one. Because like you said, that the party dynamic, it just goes totally.
It destroys literally every part of the dynamic that you want.
And I've had players like that sometimes where they want to just burn something down. It's like, no, don't do that, please. Kind of stuff. It falls apart pretty quick.
If you're playing an evil character in a party that is mostly good, you have to think evil in a way that is completely different than just, I'm going to burn this place down.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Your evil can be internal, and you can express it how you react with people and stuff. But like, I think as an evil character in a party, you need to rein it in a little bit. Especially,
I can be more subtle with it. You can be more subtle with it and stuff, not as outgoing, flagrant with it as far as you don't want the other characters to know necessarily you're evil because they're not going to trust you.
I mean, this is an overarching topic, but alignment in general.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an indicator for whether somebody's a good person or not.
Right. Oh, yeah.
As a character. Yeah. There are plenty of evil characters or good characters that people play that do horrendous things. And then there are some evil characters that I've seen do benevolent things completely out of their character of their alignment. And I think like nobody believes that they're evil.
Exactly.
Nobody does. The bad guys certainly don't in the campaign. Generally think they're on the right path.
Well, look at Anakin Skywalker.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah.
He got burnt up.
Yeah, he did.
I think alignment is more important for the matter of chaotic versus lawful than it is good versus evil.
Yeah.
It really feels more important to figure out just kind of what kind of, what are your values as a character?
Well, they're getting rid of the alignment system, right? In the next rule set coming out.
I don't know. I've
heard that they're just dumping the whole alignment system totally.
I kind of think is a little bit of a shame, even though I just spent 5 minutes talking about how I don't agree with it. I still think it should exist, but maybe not in the way that it has existed.
Well, yeah, they're not going to go out. I think I read. This is a while back. They're not going with lawful, evil, good, chaotic kind of stuff. I think they're more of a. I can't think of the right word. More of the tone of a character, and it's not. So you're free to do more what you might want to do, and not be confined with what you think you have to do, kind of thing. I think is what they're trying to go with.
Yeah, I mean, we've all experienced groups that have done things that are just unspeakably awful, and you're like, what is your alignment? You're playing a lawful good paladin. Why are you doing this?
But then you get into the same dilemma where you just defeated these evil creatures who had babies. They're going to grow up to be evil. What do you do with them? I don't know. I mean, it's a dilemma that
it's a moral quandary. And I think those are the quandaries that make D&D great. Like that's part of the element is the drama of shit. Did we do the right thing? My brother has run campaigns where like we get to the very end and we find out that the whole time we've been doing the bidding of some awful person and we thought we were doing, right by the realm. And it just turned out to be that we were politically helping just a jerk. So
that's a fun twist.
Yeah, it's a fun twist. Yeah. And it is interesting to see how players handle situations. I think, Mike, when you mentioned, getting inspiration from people who do, your players just doing the complete opposite of what you thought they were going to do. Like that is I think, a ubiquitous D&D experience. I think it's something that you live for as a DM. Like, part of me doesn't want them to do the things that I want them to do. Yeah. Like, I want them to do things that are completely unhinged, or things that are outside of the box of what I would have thought possible.
Mm-hmm. Now, if it's going to bite them in the ass where they're going to go someplace to where they're going to die, I try to guide them a little bit.
Yeah, I try to give hints.
But it's up to them. It's ultimately up to the sandbox kind of thing. You know, you can go where you want. Sure.
It is up to them to recognize the signs.
I
try not to destroy a party or kill players in a way that makes it feel like that was fully unfair. But there are cases where that's just bad luck. Yeah. I mean, it's just the luck of the die. I just don't want it to be my fault unless it makes sense.
Right. That's a question I would have for both of you guys. Have you ever been a part of a TPK as far as either DMing or playing in one? I've never done it myself. I have never done it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I always want to get right to the edge of doing it, but I never really want to go through it.
Yeah, we were close a few weeks ago on a Sunday or was it a Monday night? Or it was the new game we were playing.
I heard about that.
I probably could have killed everyone, but then it would have turned into a hostage situation. You would have been captured. I would have probably went that road. But I also, by playing through the monster, who was semi-intelligent, and it hit his own agenda. So it made sense to me to offer that kind of way out at that time. So it made sense. I don't know how other people feel about their characters dying sometimes. That's probably another thing about it. So
I don't get overly attached to my characters. And I think it's from years of playing Call of Cthulhu with my brother. I've lost a couple characters to Nick. Mostly and rightfully so. Like, Call of Cthulhu is supposed to be that's the whole purpose of the game. Yeah. I think I killed myself once in the game with a hand grenade. I'm pretty sure. It was like this, like we were being extraordinarily dumb. If you're using a hand grenade in Call of Cthulhu, you have entirely messed up. It has gone entirely wrong. I think I was trying to throw like a hand grenade into like a cultist compound, and I fumbled, and it like fell right under me, and that was it. And I was fine with it. It was the funniest thing that's ever it was hilarious. Like that was great. I think it prepared me to lose D&D characters, which I haven't lost. Like, I don't think I've lost a single D&D character. I feel like 5th edition is pretty easy to not die.
Forgiving, yeah.
I think so, especially the higher level that you get. It gets almost ridiculously easy. It makes it harder for a DM to make things challenging sometimes. That's how I feel anyway. It's just... I know, Chris, I know with you, I've seen you'll increase hit points for creatures so that people... As players, we all know...
Yeah.
Everyone knows how many hit points an orc's supposed to have, or how many hit points a bugbear is going to have.
Some people know more than others.
Yeah, some unfairly so. When never faced one before.
Know more than others. I've had a situation before where a player of mine has looked at the hit points of a creature while we are playing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not using the creature from the rule book here. Like this may on name be a skeletal warrior, but it is not the one from the monster manual.
It's not the skeletal warrior.
It is a leveled skeleton warrior. It is one that has been leveled appropriately to your party, which I think is important when you're running a campaign like mine, where you're going off the rails. Usually with the books, they try to balance it in a way. I feel they do a decent job, especially with certain modules. The
problem, though, it runs into what I have sometimes with the group. Sometimes you'll have 6 characters. Sometimes you'll have 4. Sometimes you have 5. And it's like...
it's like built for a party of like 4 or 5. And sometimes when you have like 6 party members, which is a huge amount of players... It's how do you balance this? Just add more monsters.
I'll add more opponents, or I'll add, you got to add hit points, or somebody spell casting maybe they didn't have before, kind of thing. You have to make it interesting.
Level the playing field, and not just level the playing field, make the playing field interesting. Which I'm going to give Mike here some real credit for. I think he handles combat very well. I really like the way that Mike balances combat. It makes it much more interesting.
Lately, that when I've been running some of these campaigns where it's no longer a lot of dungeon crawls. So it's not like you don't go in and you're there for like long, short rest, longer, blah, blah, blah. You got one battle and you're done. And so I want to make every battle challenging, because otherwise you can spend all your spells at once because you're not going to have another battle anytime soon. And then it's like, well, gee, that was not fun.
Yeah.
So I try to make it extend it a little bit or make it a little tougher because I want it to be a challenge. I think players appreciate that more than just an easy route.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want to steamroll through the enemies. Occasionally it's fun. Like it is occasionally fun to just roll through some goblins and be like, we got some good gear, or some good gold or something like that. But you want a good fight every like once in a while. You want like a real fight.
Here's me asking for advice from you guys. The other night, you guys tore through that frost giant like it was nothing.
Like nothing.
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 And it was supposed to like not kill you, but beat you down. So when the salamanders came out, like their breath weapons were going to just, do some damage. And like, I was like, this could get real risky, but it never got risky. Like even as I upped the hit points of the giant, as you guys wailed away on it, like, I'm like, there's no point. They just
like a lot of these creatures were frost based.
Yeah.
Which the party is, I think the party is specifically designed at this point against that. I mean, I think my character is inherent resistances to frost. I think there are some other party members who made deals with interdimensional beings to be frost resistant, because that's where we knew we would eventually be heading. Maybe not the way that we got there, but we eventually thought that we would end up in that region. Also, we have 2 magic users in our party, right? A druid and a wizard.
Yeah. So you got high level, evocation spells. They're hitting them with there. Yeah, that is a good point. That was kind of an exception because you are kind of
2 strikers being a paladin and a rogue.
Yeah,
which is like a combination from hell for any creature.
I feel like they kind of overpowered some of the character classes now to where, like with rogues, I mean,
oh my god,
sneak damage gets ridiculous at higher level, and it's like, what do you do? I find it's easier to add. I think it's more challenging to add more opponents because then you're spreading out the attacks. When you can all wail on one person, it's like no, there's no fun.
I think that was part of it as well. There was one frost giant against, like, how many of us are there? There's like
6. Well, 5.
1 against 5 of us. So I think that was part of it. When the salamanders were much more,
that would be different. Yeah.
Those were much more scary to me because I was actually kind of like slightly perturbed when they showed up. I was like, oh no.
All it takes is one bad initiative roll for that giant and he's toast.
When you use the frost weapon, everybody basically succeeded their saves by luck for the most part.
That is true. Yeah. Like, that happens sometimes.
They got lucky. And it was also, they were frost resistant, so they got lucky. Those salamanders were putting out 40 points of damage.
Oh yeah,
easily. Like that was a bad roll for them. Was 40 points.
They're nasty. They are nasty for sure. Yeah.
I was scared shitless when those salamanders showed up. I'm not gonna lie.
That's the thing. That's the thing too. With just that one giant, you lull the party into a sense of we got this, and then you dump the other stuff on them, and then the shit hits the fan, so to speak. So that's actually a good way of doing it. So.
You also have to figure we're not technically done with the fight.
True.
There is a dragon coming up. So even though we like kind of breezed through them, we used up a lot.
Well, that's my point. That's why I try to. You don't do it when you have a dungeon crawl. You can do that. You try to get players to use up their resources as much as you can, and then you can dump a big boss on. It makes it more
everyone's so eager to rest too.
Yeah, I know it's so hard to manage that.
And it's like, dude, you're in a dungeon, and you need to be careful about where you're resting. Like, I think it's fine to rest in a dungeon, but the dungeon's whole point is to wear the party down, and it isn't just a walk in the park.
You've spent all your good spells at this point, and
I love that's why when these one-offs, the one battle, then you're done. I hate it because it's like you can throw everything you have at them. Mm-hmm. That's why I like to throw something at the end, and they've already used all their good stuff. It's like, oh crap! So that makes it more interesting. It makes them have to think about it. That's the whole part about your topic with leveling up characters too fast. That's can be the danger. They get to the point where they breeze through things, and magic items can be a crutch. Mm-hmm. And so it's a fine line. You got to balance it out as best you can. It's hard.
Also, the issue of magic items, where you give out too many magic items early in a campaign, and then you realize, oh crap, they're defeating my high level enemies at a much lower level than they should be, simply because they have like a wand of magic missile, or or the DM mistakenly gave somebody a Vorpal sword, but like, I think those are also opportunities in disguise. Magic items don't necessarily have to follow the framework from which the book has provided. A lot of times I will attach really powerful weapons, some really nasty curses on top of them. One of the swords that I have in a campaign that I'm running, which right now, which is the Curse of Strahd game, I gave one of my players who's a sorcerer a longsword that is a magic longsword that gives them the proficiency to use it, but also is, does a lot of cool stuff. It's a sentient sword, but it has an agenda, and you have to feed the sword.
Yeah.
So it becomes a management thing where they have to figure out how to manage this powerful weapon, even though they have, spells. Right. They sometimes can't use their spells because the sword requires nourishment.
It reminds me of an old campaign we had back in the day. I think it was like a 5th or 7th level characters or whatever. They had their magic items or whatever. However, at the beginning, they're basically ambushed in a hotel, in an inn, put to sleep, all their stuff taken away. I love that aspect of taking things away from players and making them try to fight and get it back again, because that's always they'll try. They'll do everything they can to try to get. Oh yeah. I like the little twists like that are fun to have, because it's like you got to be prepared. You got to be prepared for it. And the one, I guess D&D tries to balance it out by the attunement thing, where you can only have so many attuned and stuff like that now, which it does help. It does help, but it still, you can get some stuff that's just a little bit too much sometimes for players.
Yeah. And for me as a player, when I do play, I don't want to be prepared for everything.
Yeah.
Part of the fun is not succeeding at D&D. Like, if we won every single time in D&D, it would not be fun for me. That's not important to me for the character that I'm playing, and it's not important for the story, and it's not important for the it is just not fun either. Like, if there's no challenge, then what consequences will there be for things? Like, what's the point?
Yeah, there should be no winning in D&D. Yeah. No one should go into playing this thing, I'm going to win. I'm going
to win a D&D, guys.
You got to get the right group. You get the right group of guys together or girls, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah. But it's balanced.
What's the longest game you've ever run?
Oh, man. 3 years.
I would say that one I was talking with Chris with the Giants thing. That was probably the longest one we ran. I don't know how many. That was a good one.
That was close to 3. I think that was close to 3 years.
It might be. We started at first level, and they got up to like 12th level at that point.
I want to say we started around 2019 or 2020, and it ran all the way up to 2023, I think.
Might have been early 2023, probably.
Yeah.
I think.
But it was close to 3 years, so you're about the same length as my longest.
Well, let me be more specific. What's the longest single game you've ever run?
Oh, like length in hours.
Yeah. When I was a kid, we'd play all night.
I mean, I'm trying to think. Maybe, 8 hours. 8 hours. That was it.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say mine is probably right around there, 8 to 10. I remember once where we started, I feel like it was like at noon, and we went till about 10 at night. And we did break, and we ordered pizza, and we did walk down to the store that was near my house and stuff. But yeah, that was a long one. I like that. I miss long content, but I understand what everybody's talking about. Like, it's hard.
It's easier to do it when you're in person.
Yeah, because you have to drive there. You go there. You're going to be there.
Yeah, you're going to be there already.
You're not going to just stay 2 or 3 hours. Yeah. You're going to stay for a 4 or 5 hour game.
And then half of the game is people just screwing around and like joking and stuff that, which is great. Like that's another portion of D&D. It's a social event, so it becomes like a get together, and then it's easy for it to run longer. Whereas on VTT, I experience fatigue from playing on computer, no matter how fun the game is. And even my own games that I'm running, especially my own games that I'm running, I start to get like exhausted by the end of it.
Maybe someday we'll all get together again and play a real game of D&D. We should plan a night after all the 3 new books are out. When we all get together and just dig into them and like read, be like, whoa, look at this. And
that would be fun. I'm excited to see what they've done with it. But I'm also kind of hesitant to accept all of these changes, I think.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, like, as to how D&D Beyond is going to work. Like, can I select whichever rule? Like, alert is a great feat. You get +5 to initiative, and you can no longer be surprised, which is amazing.
Pretty darn
now,
great.
I think it's just you can't be surprised or +5. I can't remember which one, but like I understand that one. But at the same time, do I have the choice if I want to use the old one over the new one? Feats to me are a little bit more important, only because you only get them every 4th level or whatever it is. And so like I look forward to it. I love reading every single one of them, and there is going to be one I'm going to add to our campaign after the last combat. I think instead of being able to do a call shot once a round, it's going to be a feat. You can take call shot as a feat, and once per per combat, you can make a call shot.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously, I feel like there should be room for call shot. Like, I think it should exist. Yeah. I don't think it should be removed entirely from D&D. Like, I feel like it has been. Or they could use their move action to do it.
Oh, instead.
So not only would they be at disadvantage, but they would also sacrifice their move action or their cunning action as a rogue. Yeah, they wouldn't be able to do their cunning action.
I like the feat idea. The feat idea is a really good idea for that.
I agree. Really. I think that's a really good way to balance it.
Well, what level do you think Legolas was during the movies?
During the movies, Legolas was like clearly like some type of level 15.
Okay, so he was up there, yeah. Because he was just
at least
he got like 4 attacks a turn.
If he's calling character. All those shots, he's throwing out some damage.
Yeah, that man's throwing some damage out. So it's
eye, throat, balls.
Yeah. And maybe I think this is just me personally as a player. I don't necessarily want to play as a hero or like this legendary character sometimes. Sometimes I do. But sometimes I just want to play as a person that is very that has a conviction or has an ideal that or has been put into the right position. They're just like an average Joe that's been thrust into like these crazy events.
I was just thinking that. I mean, I've always, everyone loves making the characters and stuff at the beginning. I always would love to throw in there to where you're restricted to how high your ability scores could be.
Yeah.
To be a smarter player, to have to figure things out without relying on your abilities and stuff like that it could be an interesting way of doing it as well.
I think that's a thing that goes hand in hand with the DM too, though, where if you've got a story for your character, I think like, as a DM, I like try to read your stories and here and there I'll drop little, trails to things. And
I used to make characters, I think, that were really good. Like really powerful. Now I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm just going to build this based on how I feel.
Yeah. Build who you want, not who you think you should be.
Yeah. Like it doesn't necessarily need to be this overpowered character.
Did you play in Alex's game where I played Welf Dudarian?
Yes.
He was a fighter with a strength of 10, but I pumped up his charisma. I wanted him to be the charismatic type character. And
I liked Welf.
Yeah, he was fun. He was a drunk.
I liked Welf a lot. He was a really cool character. And I think there's a lot of people that would look at a character like Welf and be like, well, that's stupid. Like, why would you play a character that's not designed for the class that they're playing? And I'm like, that's the whole point of what makes that character interesting. And that's the crux of who that character is.
Mm-hmm.
I tried being a character one time where I wanted to be blind in one eye. And the DM he didn't really just what's the word I'm looking for? Encourage it or play into it like I wanted to, because I was like, well, sure, I'll take like disadvantage on perception checks for vision, but maybe get advantage on sound or something like that. I was trying to do something like that.
Oh man, that would be cool.
Yeah,
didn't seem to be wanting to will it too much.
That's a shame.
So kind of went by the wayside a bit, but stuff like that, you just little quirks you can put in your character and make it interesting.
I'm gonna say as a DM, one person that I know of that is incredible at playing characters that have flaws or are completely just bizarre out of just the box characters is your son.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, Mason, he has a knack for that for sure.
He plays some of the most interesting characters I have ever seen. He played a kobold gunslinger in a campaign, which was really interesting. The concept of playing as a monster who hates adventurers because they killed his family, and is now working with adventurers to find the specific people that killed his group.
That is brilliant. I
was dabbling in the kitchen, and she wanted to make the Dungeon Master character.
Oh yes, yes, there he is.
That's perfect for tonight. That's awesome.
Right.
Oh, there he is.
The whole voice thing, I try to do voices for different NPCs, but my problem is I always forget what voice I use for somebody. I don't remember what I did. I had to wing it every time. It gets kind of funny after a while.
It's easy for my accents to blend. And it's one of the reasons why I tend to keep my campaigns based on certain portions of the world that I can do accents in. Simply because that's what I can do.
You know your limitations.
I know my limitations. I'm not going to try to set a campaign in East Asia because it's going to be bad. And it's going to be an awful stereotype, really racist.
Yeah.
And if I were to set it in that part of the world, I would just choose to use no accent.
Yeah, just nope. Sorry. So I find, at least when I'm creating an NPC that I know you guys are going to be dealing with for a long term, I try to flesh them out a little bit beyond. And so I might know a little more about them. And I kind of I think about them so Xylak, you guys, the sparkly man, he's he's an elf and he's very flamboyant and he's always, what could I offer you? Oh, that's a delicious apple. Could I offer you some grapes? That's Xylak to me. I just have to remember that he's the flamboyant elf type character.
Yes.
And I lock it in, and I think that might help if there's somebody that the party's going to interact with, just kind of push them out a little bit in your mind, even just come up with what's he up to these days?
In my mind, when I'm prepping, I have a voice, but then once I start playing, I forget.
And that's part of it too. I usually create archetypes, and that archetype has a specific type of voice. There will be differences NPC to NPC, but if I'm playing they're going to, some Norse kingdom and they're talking to a king, he's going to sound like this and he will be very regal. But if they talk to some drunk at the tavern, he's going to be like this and I barely understand myself. I just take that same accent and change the personality behind it.
Yeah, I wish in my world, everyone was a dwarf because it's so easy to do the dwarf. I'm a little dwarf. Give me some ale or whatever. And if any of you viewers are interested, you can hire any of us as a voice actor at any time.
Please do.
We charge a lot of money, but we're always looking for work.
In your campaigns, Jay, I've yet to find a character that has the same voice.
It helps to have multiple personality disorder. I just let one of them take over.
Then that makes sense.
Would you say that the geeks haven't inherited the earth?
I'd
say yes, but it might be a bad thing.
I tell you what, back in high school, like I told you, that's when I started learning. Our group, we kind of spread it around the school quite a bit to the point that we got permission from the school. This is during the Satanic Panic stuff.
Man.
Keep that in mind. We got permission from the school to create an activity club after school so people can go and play. So we made it cool. The nerds
so you guys made a cult. That's great. That's awesome.
God damn you, Tom Hanks.
Yes.
all three of us at the moment live in Lynchburg, Virginia. This is like the capital of pretty extreme Christianity. Playing D&D, even when I was getting into it, was kind of seen as a weird thing to do. And I think just now it's starting to become like really mainstream.
The pandemic kind of, in a way, with the VTTs, made it even more accessible to a generation who's used to looking at a screen. Now they're just like, well, if I'm going to play D&D, I'll just do it on a screen.
I think there's been no better time in history to play D&D than at this moment. As far as being able to access stuff and find groups and play. I'm sure there are people that could argue what the best version of D&D is.
Oh, yeah.
But regardless of that, there's been no better time in history to play it. It's so easy.
Thaco definitely was the best time.
Thaco definitely, yeah.
I don't want to hear Thaco. I don't want to hear about it. I've heard enough. It's so alien to me.
Negative 8 armor class is really good.
Yes.
And it makes sense from that context.
Yeah.
You know, that was D&D. Like, that was it.
Yeah. It was how Gygax meant it to be, god dang it.
The Satanic Panic did have its little grip on me as too, because I grew up, my dad was a Baptist minister and he died when I was young, but my grandmother bought me the red box at a yard sale around 1988, 87, 88.
Yeah.
And, my mother wouldn't let me play it. So it wasn't until after I think I was 16, I played my first game, and I played as 6 characters. I'd never played a game.
We did the same thing. We did the same thing. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I decided to run, which was probably 3 or 4 months after that, that I realized that, no, you play a player. This makes it a little bit easier for maintenance, but I was the only one playing at the time, so I had no choice.
I remember my very first party, party with Jay, where it was just myself, my brother, my dad. It was Sam Wilkins,
Ken, and Jay.
I
was running that, and the funny thing is like when I left Taunton, I figured, my D&D days are done. I'll never run another game again. And it wasn't until that connection I met your mom, and then I met your dad came in, then you guys came in, and I met Sam one night, and then we all talked, and I was like, well, I guess I'm running another D&D game.
And the rest is history. It was a great group. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah, we learn with each campaign that passes us. And the funny thing is like we're all young whippersnappers right now, I'd like to say, for the most part, but there's only so many games you got left in you, so run them to the best of your ability. That's what I say.
There are campaigns that I've run before that I feel like have been like my favorite as far as like ones that I've done, but I always feel like my favorite one is the one that I'm about to do.
That's why we put ourselves through this, and we drive ourselves mad, and we have 2 or 3 campaigns going because we're artistically and creatively, like, we're starved for like putting ourselves in this position of just creating a world or running a game and like just seeing where it goes and every facet of it and learning it and being ready, and it's just an amazing experience. I've met Mason, and I know Mason before I met you, Mike, and I never made the connection until like a few games into playing with like under your game. I was just like, oh, he's Mason's dad. Oh, okay. Yeah. Generations of players.
And that's the thing. We do have generations of players. Like, it's so interesting because, you know, we have my dad, who's easily within like the baby boomer generation. Yeah. We have yourself, who is squarely in like Gen X. We have myself, which is like the most millennial that you can possibly get. And like soon enough,
be careful, Chris. Be careful.
We have Mike, who's Mike, you know. He's like, go ahead, say it, Chris.
I think D&D used an abacus at that time, right?
But what's interesting to me is it has united a bunch of people who are from different, who are born in different times, who had different kind of upbringings and different experiences in life, and it's all joined them all together in a common thing, an interest that we all find fun and engaging. And I feel like it's something that's just great.
For a game that there's a lot of combat in, it's the most peaceful situations I've found myself in, surrounded by people like-minded that just want to have fun playing D&D.
And some people that I disagree with too, like not necessarily agree with people. Like I don't have to. Like it brings us out of the craziness that we deal with on a everyday basis, from how complicated things have gotten into a much simpler time and a much simpler place that we can just chill out and have fun playing a D&D game.
I've thought a lot about that recently, how like if I could raise my kids in any generation, I think it would be like the late 70s or 80s, because like we now are so like, you know, cell phones, computers. I grew up no cell phones, no computers. Mike grew up with that. You know, it's like, and I feel like D&D would have been better for me back then than it is now.
Feel like everyone likes a good story, and what's better than being a part of that story?
Mm-hmm.
And I, as a DM, you're the arbiter of that. You're the one that conveys the world to the players. You're the window that which they see the world that is this fantasy world or whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't have said that any better. That's really well said. Yeah.
I don't take that lightly either. People are taking time out of their day, frankly, time out of their weekend to play with you. And I don't want people to feel like they've wasted their time. And I really want people to enjoy it. And I mean, obviously, like, you're going to have bad days as a DM, like everybody does. Like, there are days where it's like, shit, I really kind of bundled that. But then the players will be like, that was a great game. And I'm like, I thought that was the shittiest game I've ever run. I guess the moral is you can never tell what your players are going to think about a game. And just because you feel like you did poorly doesn't necessarily mean that you did poorly either. Right.
And I always appreciate the feedback y'all give whenever I feel like, I'm a dungeon master, but you know, but I appreciate it.
I've had so much fun in your games.
I talk to Artie quite frequently after the game. I'm like, that was awesome. And like, we'll just talk about what happened in the game or whatever. Yeah.
I really enjoy what every one of us brings to the table as a DM for different reasons. I feel like we all kind of exhibit different aspects that DMs typically have. I think Mike adds an element that is missing from a lot of campaigns now, that is challenge, like real challenge.
He runs in such an old school feeling way that it makes me forget that I'm playing a VTT. Like,
I feel like I'm at a table when I'm playing with Mike. Like, it feels like a real game of D&D.
I appreciate that. I mean, I throw compliments right back at you guys. I love the how you can just think on your feet so easily and just blend with whatever everyone's doing and build the story and build on top when you don't expect something to happen, and you can just come up with an idea. Boom! It's this. It's my limitations are, I know my limitations, and I'm not great at that. I try to do a little more of that now. I'm trying to expand a little bit.
I think Jay and I both are kind of theatrical in a way.
Right.
We're very theatrical DMs. There's always a voice. There's always, like, you know, these twists and like these kind of story elements.
Just the world that Jay has built over all the years that he's done this. It's impressive to me. I can't even imagine doing it.
It's on par with like Middle Earth in like lore. There is a lot of lore to Jay's world. Like, I think a lot more than I'm able to do in some of my like homebrew campaigns, simply because there's so much content. It's just wild.
The thing is though, that lore, a lot of, even though some of that lore is me, a lot of it came from the players, like where they travel to in the world. Like, I may have named a place on my map, but very little of it. Yes, you guys created. You went there. You met the people that wouldn't have existed unless you planned on going to that location. And so the lore and the history was almost just developed for me over 30 years of running Athalia. So
wow.
It's really interesting to see what these worlds turn into once the players have done what they've done with them. I think there's a lot to be learned from, you know, playing with other DMs as a DM.
I agree.
Like, definitely. I've learned things from Mike. I've learned things from you, Jay. Like, there are things that I've adapted into my campaigns that I've learned a lot from, especially like the way that Mike, you level combat. Like, I've learned a bit from that, the way that I want the players to be on their toes.
And that's why the advice that the information we're relaying here tonight, we hope it can help you in your games if you're watching at home right now. That's all we're here for. have a good time and share with us, share with you the knowledge that we've acquired over the many years. So I appreciate you guys coming out tonight and taking the time. I know it's tough as we get older, trying to get everybody together on a night and power outages and stuff.
It's the older thing again. I've seen this trend
here.
This
is a trend. This is like, what are you trying to say, Jay? Well, guys, thank you for having me on, Jay.
A lot of fun, yeah, Jay. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Love having you guys. Love hanging out with you guys, talking with you guys, playing D&D with you guys. So I appreciate it.
Don't go to sleep with a catch it in your pocket.